Welcome back to Celestial Scrolls, where we bring ancient Chinese myths and legends to life. Today, we continue our epic journey with Tang Sanzang and his disciples in Episode 17, The Weeping Peak. After freeing the souls in the Valley of Forgotten Souls, our heroes now face an even greater challenge, the ancient Sorrowmonger demon that feeds on grief and traps souls between realms. This episode takes us to a mountain shrouded in perpetual tears, where villagers are forced to make offerings of their sorrow to appease a creature as old as suffering itself. Can Tang Sanzang's compassion overcome this ancient evil? Will Monkey King's strength be enough against an enemy that feeds on emotion rather than flesh? Join us for this emotional chapter that explores the nature of grief, liberation, and the power of transformation. If you're enjoying our Journey to the West series, hit that subscribe button and join us on this legendary pilgrimage to the Western Heaven. First, the path to sorrow. 3 days had passed since Tang Sanzang and his disciples left the Valley of Forgotten Souls. The blooming field of soul flowers grew distant in their memories as they journeyed toward Weeping Peak, guided by the spirit of Lin Mei, who appeared each evening to ensure they remained on course. "We will reach the mountain by nightfall," Wukong announced, landing beside his master after scouting ahead. He adjusted his tiger skin kilt and narrowed his fiery eyes toward the horizon. "The locals call it Weeping Peak because mist constantly flows from its summit like endless tears." Tang Sanzang nodded solemnly. The soul flowers he had collected remained fresh in his sleeve, their gentle blue glow occasionally visible through the fabric. "The sorrow of trapped souls manifests in many ways," he said quietly. Baji trudged along, his rake dragging furrows in the dirt path. "Master, I've been thinking—" "A dangerous pastime for you," Wukong interjected with a mischievous grin. Baji ignored him. "If this sorrowmonger feeds on grief, wouldn't it sense our approach? Especially yours, Master, given your spiritual power." Sha Wujing adjusted the burden on his shoulders. "Baji raises a fair point. We may be walking into a trap." Tang Sanzang dismounted from his white horse and gathered his disciples around him. "The demon may indeed sense our approach, but remember, it feeds on sorrow, not joy." From his sleeve, he withdrew one of the soul flowers. Its blue petals pulsed with gentle light. "We will carry these as protection. They are born from the peace found after suffering and represent the triumph of liberation. Such energy is poison to a creature that thrives on eternal grief." Wukong accepted a flower, tucking it behind his ear with unusual care. "A clever strategy, Master, but I'd still prefer to bash its head in with my staff." "Violence alone cannot defeat this enemy," Tang Sanzang cautioned. "The sorrowmonger has existed for centuries, feeding on the most powerful of human emotions. We must be vigilant and unified in purpose." As they continued their journey, the landscape grew increasingly desolate. Verdant forests gave way to twisted, leafless trees. Birdsong faded into unsettling silence. By mid-afternoon, they came upon a small village at the foot of an imposing mountain. Unlike the vibrant market towns they typically encountered, this village exuded a palpable melancholy. Villagers moved like shadows between dilapidated buildings, their faces drawn and eyes downcast. No children played in the streets, no merchants called out their wares. "This place reeks of despair," Wukong muttered, his nose wrinkling. Tang Sanzang approached an elderly man sitting motionless outside a crumbling tea house. "Honored elder," he said with a respectful bow, "might we trouble you for information about this mountain?" The old man raised his head slowly, his eyes clouded with cataracts and sorrow. "You seek Weeping Peak?" His voice rasped like autumn leaves. "Turn back, holy monk. Nothing awaits you there but misery." "We've come to confront the source of this misery," Tang Sanzang explained gently. A bitter laugh escaped the old man's lips. "Many have tried. None return." He gestured vaguely at the silent villagers. "We who live in its shadow have learned to survive by offering it what it desires." Bajie stepped forward, his small eyes narrowing with suspicion. "And what exactly do you offer it?" The old man's gaze dropped to the dirt. "Our grief. Each month, one family must journey to the peak to remember." "To remember what?" Shao Wujing asked. "Whatever brings them the most pain." The old man's hands trembled. "Lost children, failed harvests, betrayed loves. The demon feeds on the fresh anguish of remembrance." Tang Sanzang's compassionate heart constricted. "And if the families refuse?" "Then it comes to the village instead." The old man finally met Tang Sanzang's gaze. "Better to sacrifice one family's peace than lose the entire village." As darkness approached, the pilgrims secured lodging in the village's only inn, a decrepit building with more holes than roof. The innkeeper, a hollow-cheeked woman, refused payment. "If you truly mean to challenge the mountain demon," she whispered, "that is payment enough. But know this, tomorrow night the Chen family must make their offering. Their youngest daughter died last winter. The demon will be especially hungry for a parent's grief." After the innkeeper departed, Tang Sanzang gathered his disciples. "We must act before the Chen family makes their journey. Tonight we will prepare. Tomorrow we confront the Sorrowmonger." Chen Yong and his wife exchanged glances. "Then we must go first," Chen Yong said. "Our grief for our daughter will open the way." "No," Tang Sanzang decided. "You have suffered enough at this demon's hands." He turned to his disciples. "Each of us carries sorrows from our past lives, our mistakes, our transformations. We must bring these to the surface now, not to feed the demon, but to breach its defenses." Bajie shifted uncomfortably. "Master, dwelling on past mistakes isn't exactly my favorite pastime." "Nevertheless," Tang Sanzang said firmly, "it is necessary." The pilgrims formed a line, with Tang Sanzang at the front. Each closed their eyes, searching within themselves for the griefs they carried. Tang Sanzang for the disciples who had died before Wukong joined him. Wukong for his prideful rebellion and subsequent punishment. Bajie for his fall from grace. Shao Wujing for the lives taken during his destructive past. As each connected with their sorrow, the barrier before them thinned. Tang Sanzang stepped forward first, passing through the rippling surface as if through a waterfall. His disciples followed, along with the Chen couple, who insisted on seeing their mission through. Beyond the barrier, the peak plateau spread before them, a flat expanse of bare stone surrounded by clouds. At the center stood an ancient temple, its walls blackened as if by fire, its roof crowned with grotesque gargoyles that seemed to weep stone tears. "The Sorrowmonger's lair," Wukong growled, his staff extending to its full length in anticipation. Before they could approach the temple, the mist around them congealed, forming into a tall figure that blocked their path. It wore the semblance of a scholar in ancient robes, with skin pale as death and eyes that shimmered with constant tears. "Visitors," it said, its voice resonant yet brittle, like ice about to crack. "How refreshing! Most who come here seek only to make their offerings and depart. But you," its gaze fixed on Tang Sanzang, "you bring defiance?" Tang Sanzang stepped forward, his expression serene despite the oppressive aura of sorrow that emanated from the demon. "I bring compassion for those you have trapped between realms. I bring hope of liberation." The Sorrowmonger's mouth twisted in a parody of a smile. Compassion? Hope? Such fleeting emotions. Sorrow endures. Grief persists. These are the true constants of existence. "You pervert the natural order," Tang Sanzang countered. "Grief is part of life, yes, but not its purpose. Souls must be allowed to complete their journey, not remain trapped in perpetual suffering for your sustenance." The demon's form shifted, growing larger, more imposing. "You presume to lecture me on the natural order? I was ancient when your Buddha still walked the earth as a mortal prince. I have tasted the tears of emperors and peasants alike." Wukong twirled his staff impatiently. "Enough talk. Let's see if demons can weep." Before Tang Sanzang could stop him, Wukong launched himself at the Sorrowmonger, his staff aimed at its head. The demon dissolved into mist just before impact, reforming behind Wukong with a sweep of its elongated arms that sent the Monkey King tumbling across the plateau. "Strength means nothing here," the demon hissed. "Only sorrow has power." As if to demonstrate, it extended a hand toward Chen Yong and his wife. Instantly, they collapsed to their knees, overwhelmed by magical amplification of their grief. Tears poured from their eyes, forming rivulets that flowed toward the demon's feet, where they were absorbed like water into parched soil. "Stop!" Tang Sanzang commanded, his voice carrying surprising authority. To everyone's amazement, the demon froze, momentarily startled by the power in the monk's tone. Tang Sanzang withdrew the final soul flower from his robe. It pulsed with blue light, causing the demon to shrink back. "You feed on trapped emotions, memories forever cycling through pain without resolution. But true liberation comes from accepting loss and finding peace despite it." The Sorrowmonger hissed, its scholarly appearance melting away to reveal a more grotesque form. Gaunt limbs, elongated fingers, a mouth that split its face in a perpetual wail. "Peace is a lie mortals tell themselves. There is only brief respite between sufferings." Tang Sanzang remained unmoved. "Then how do you explain this?" He held the soul flower higher. "Born from the very souls you trapped for centuries, it represents their final triumph, finding peace despite your best efforts to keep them in torment." The demon lunged forward, attempting to snatch the flower, but Bajie and Xiao Wujing moved to protect their master. Wukong, recovered from his tumble, rejoined the group, his staff at the ready. Tang Sanzang addressed his disciples. "Physical attacks alone cannot defeat this enemy. We must strike at its essence. Bajie, Wujing, help the Chen couple. Wukong with me." The liberation. While Bajie and Xiao Wujing led the Chen couple to safety behind a rock formation, Tang Sanzang and Wukong faced the Sorrowmonger. The demon's form continued to shift between its scholarly disguise and its true monstrous appearance, as if struggling to maintain its preferred facade. "What's your plan, Master?" Wukong asked, staff still gripped tightly. "The Temple of Sorrows," Tang Sanzang replied, nodding toward the blackened structure. "It's the anchor for the demon's power. the nexus where all the grief it harvests is stored and converted to magical energy. Wukong grinned. So we destroy the temple? Not exactly, Tang Sanzang corrected. We must purify it. Violence would only feed the cycle of suffering. The demon, seemingly rejuvenated by the fresh tears it had harvested from the Chen couple, loomed larger before them. Your pathetic flower cannot match the power I've accumulated over centuries, it taunted. Tang Sanzang met its gaze without fear. One flower? Perhaps not. But the essence it represents, the potential for peace after suffering, that power has no limit. He turned to Wukong. Create a diversion. I need to reach the temple. With a whoop of delight, Wukong leapt into action. He plucked 3 hairs from his head, blew upon them, and with a cry of "Change!" transformed them into 3 perfect copies of himself. The 4 monkey kings surrounded the demon, their golden staffs twirling in perfect synchronization. "Over here, tear-drinker!" they taunted in unison. The Sorrowmonger roared in frustration, its form expanding into a swirling vortex of mist that lashed out at the multiple Wukongs. While the demon was distracted, Tang Sanzang sprinted toward the temple, the soul flower clutched to his chest. The temple entrance yawned before him like a mouth, dark, forbidding, radiating cold that chilled the soul rather than the body. Tang Sanzang hesitated at the threshold, feeling waves of concentrated sorrow washing over him. For a moment, his own griefs threatened to overwhelm him. The deaths of past disciples, the burdens of his sacred mission, the weight of compassion for all suffering beings. "Master!" Bajie's voice cut through his momentary paralysis. The pig disciple had followed him, rake at the ready. "You can't enter alone. The sorrow within might be too much, even for you." Tang Sanzang nodded gratefully. "Together, then." They entered the Temple of Sorrows side by side. Inside, the air was thick with accumulated grief. Centuries of tears, wails, and lamentations made manifest. Along the walls stood urns of various sizes, each glowing with a sickly blue light. Captured sorrows, Tang Sanzang realized aloud. Each vessel contains the grief of those who came to make offerings. Bajie approached one of the urns cautiously. "What do we do with them?" "They must be released," Tang Sanzang replied. "Not destroyed, but transformed, just as the souls in the Valley of Forgotten Souls found peace through acknowledgement and remembrance." At the center of the temple stood an altar of black stone. Upon it rested a single object, a crystal bowl filled with what appeared to be luminescent tears. This, Tang Sanzang intuited, was the heart of the Sorrowmonger's power, the repository of its most potent, harvested emotions. Outside, the sounds of battle continued as Wukong and his copies fought to contain the demon. Sha Wujing's voice occasionally joined the fray, suggesting he too had entered the conflict. Tang Sanzang approached the altar, the soul flower still cradled in his hands. As he neared the crystal bowl, the flower pulsed more vigorously, as if recognizing its opposition. "Stand back," he warned Bajie, then gently placed the soul flower into the bowl of tears. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Light exploded from the point of contact, the pure blue of the flower meeting the sickly luminescence of captured sorrow. The bowl began to vibrate, then crack, as the 2 opposing forces contested for dominance. Outside, the Sorrowmonger unleashed a wail that shook the very mountain. "What are you doing?" it shrieked, suddenly abandoning its fight with Wukong to surge toward the temple. Tang Sanzang raised his hands and began to chant, not the Heart Sutra or the traditional Buddhist prayers, but a newer incantation that formed spontaneously in his mind, words of compassion specifically crafted for this moment of liberation. Grief, acknowledged, finds its peace. Tears shed cleanse the heart. Memory honored frees the soul. Sorrow transformed becomes wisdom. The crystal bowl shattered, releasing a fountain of light that rose to the temple ceiling and beyond. The urns along the walls began to crack one by one, each releasing wisps of blue energy that joined the central column. The Sorrowmonger reached the temple entrance just as the transformation reached its peak. It howled in fury and desperation, its form beginning to dissolve as its centuries of accumulated power underwent a fundamental change. "This is not defeat," Tang Sanzang called to the demon, his voice firm but not unkind. "This is evolution. Even you may find a more harmonious existence if you accept the natural cycle of emotions." The demon clawed at the temple doorway, its form increasingly insubstantial. "I am sorrow," it wailed. "Without me, how will mortals know the depth of their attachments?" "Sorrow will always exist," Tang Sanzang acknowledged, "but not as a parasite feeding on endless suffering. Return to your true nature, a natural part of life's cycle, not its cruel manipulator." The column of light expanded outward, engulfing the temple, the plateau, and eventually the entire mountain. Within it, Tang Sanzang glimpsed hundreds of trapped souls rising like lanterns into the sky, finally freed from their bonds. The Chen couple, emerging from their shelter, watched in wonder as their daughter's spirit briefly materialized before them, not weeping now, but smiling in peaceful farewell before joining the ascending souls. When the light finally faded, the blackened temple had transformed. Its walls gleamed white in the morning sun that somehow broke through the perpetual mist. The grotesque gargoyles had become serene bodhisattva figures, their hands extended in blessing rather than supplication. Of the Sorrowmonger, only a small wisp of grayish mist remained, hovering uncertainly before Tang Sanzang. "What remains is your essence," the monk explained gently, "pure sorrow without malice or hunger. Find your place in the natural order." The wisp shuddered, then dispersed into the mountain air, indistinguishable from the morning mist that now appeared cleansing rather than oppressive. Baji emerged from the transformed temple, looking somewhat bewildered by the thorough nature of their victory. "Is it truly gone, Master?" Tang Sanzang nodded. "Its corrupt form is gone. What remains will no longer trap souls or feed on grief. Weeping Peak will weep no more, at least not tears of eternal sorrow." Wukong bounded up, reabsorbing his hair clones with a satisfied grin. "Well, that was almost disappointing. I barely got to use my staff." "Not every battle is won through combat," Tang Sanzang reminded him. "Sometimes transformation achieves what destruction cannot." They descended the mountain together, joined by the Chen couple whose faces now showed the beginnings of healing. Grief still present, but no longer all-consuming. Word of their victory spread quickly through the village. As they prepared to resume their journey westward, villagers lined the streets, not in mourning now, but in tentative celebration. The innkeeper, who had refused payment, now pressed gifts upon them for the road ahead. "For generations we lived under the mountain's shadow," she told Tang Sanzang. "Now we must learn to live in the light again, Tang Sanzang blessed the village before they departed, leaving them with guidance for establishing a small shrine of remembrance, not to feed sorrow, but to honor it as part of life's journey before moving forward. As the pilgrims continued their westward path, leaving Weeping Peak behind, Shao Wujing asked the question that had been in all their minds. Master, will all our detours be so significant? Tang Sanzang smiled, the wisdom of recent experiences evident in his serene expression. The path to enlightenment is rarely straight, Wujing. Each seeming detour teaches us something essential for the journey ahead. And what did we learn from this particular detour? Baji grumbled, though his tone lacked its usual petulance. Tang Sanzang considered this as his white horse carried him steadily forward. That sorrow, like all emotions, serves a purpose when it flows naturally through us. It is only when we become trapped in any single state, be it grief or even joy, that suffering truly takes hold. Wukong, balancing atop his cloud-walking staff, nodded sagely, and perhaps that sometimes the most fearsome demons aren't those with fangs and claws, but those that exploit our most human vulnerabilities. Precisely, Tang Sanzang agreed. Now, let us continue westward. The scriptures await, and our journey has only begun. As they crested a hill, the setting sun bathed them in golden light. Behind them, barely visible in the distance, Weeping Peak stood transformed, no longer shrouded in perpetual mist, but clear against the evening sky, its silhouette reminiscent of a seated Buddha in peaceful meditation. The pilgrims faced forward once more, their steps carrying them ever westward on their sacred mission. The path would bring more trials, more demons, more lessons, but for now they walked in harmony, four unlikely companions united in purpose and strengthened by their shared triumph over sorrow's darkest manifestation. And that's the end of episode 17. The Sorrowmonger has been defeated, and the souls of Weeping Peak have finally found peace. But our pilgrim's journey west is far from over, and new challenges await on the horizon. We'll be back with episode 18 soon, where Tang Sanzang and his disciples will face even more extraordinary trials on their sacred mission. Can't wait to have you join us for the next adventure. If you enjoyed this tale of transformation and liberation, hit that like button and subscribe to Celestial Scrolls. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new chapter in this epic journey. Have thoughts about the Sorrowmonger or predictions for what comes next? Share them in the comments below. Here at Celestial Scrolls, we'll keep bringing these timeless Chinese legends to life just for you, my friend. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on our journey to the Western Heaven.